Salutations everyone, welcome to another Marvel Rivals video where today I'm just going to be talking about sort of the state of the game, what have we learned, how are things looking, what sort of team comp should you be trying to run, should there be role queue, would it make the game better, and we can just start off with this because it's going to be a quick simple thing. Do you think the game is going to have role queue? No, I don't. I didn't think it would even from the first time booting up the game because it's just a very different kind of game. It's a less competitive game. It's a less balanced type of game. And you can see that in a lot of how the game is sort of built and how it's looking to be designed for in the future. Like in Overwatch, the devs were like, yeah, we know there's not a lot of supports and there's not a lot of tanks. And so we're going to try to add more supports and tanks. Well, we know the next like 10 characters that are coming out in Marvel Rivals, and almost every single one of them is a DPS. So I don't think that that's really going to change. Almost all the characters currently in the game are DPS. Now, we know all the ones in the future are going to be mainly be DPS. But sure, we'll get some future Vanguards and some future Strategists, but almost all of them are going to be DPS, and that shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Would role queue make the game better? Yes, of course it would. Of course it would. Anything to stop all the quad and penta DPS comps. No matter how you play or what you play or how good you are, you should know just by having a brain stem that running all DPS is just not going to be good because you've probably played a video game before in your life and you know that that's not a good idea. Neither is screwing up your Jeff ult and just not killing anybody. That was crazy. But, people are learning, people are getting better and noticing things. Every single prediction I had in my first Marvel Rivals video was completely correct and spot on. I shouldn't get any credit. Those were all easy predictions to make about, how everyone was going to play DPS. Everyone should have seen that coming. How some of the best players in the world in this game and other games are going to say, this is what you should play. This is what's really good. Here's a tier list. And all of them are going to be absolute dog water. And every single one of them was. And then I also said that those same people would say that their own tier lists were really bad in just a couple weeks' time. And they also all did that as well. Again, not difficult to predict. People are simple creatures. History will always repeat itself in a video game, no matter what. People are people. People are easy to predict because there's so many people. There's just so many. The sample size is too big when we're talking about people. And a lot of people play video games. So yeah, things are going to be mostly pretty easy to see coming when it comes to like their behaviors and stuff. Not necessarily like how certain games are going to turn out or what's going to be good and what's going to be bad. Everyone's still kind of learning. There's a lot of things that people still haven't learned to do. People haven't learned to peel for their supports yet. People haven't learned to shoot at Moon Knight's Onks. People haven't learned to shoot at Penny Parker's little robot thing. That takes away a ton of power. And if you're Penny Parker holding a corner with that robot and people just running into those traps, you're just going to win. You're just straight up going to win, even if they're running double tank and double support. That's just really, really bad if they're just playing poorly. Any team comp, yes, can work. Any team comp can work. So, that's a really bad straw man argument to have right now. Yes, any character you can win with and climb all the way to top 500 with, and a team composition can win a game. But that's a really bad way to look at things, and that's a really stupid thing to say because guess what also can happen technically? Everyone on the enemy team could go AFK and you just win instantly within a minute. Or the entire team just jumps off the map the entire game. Those are things that all can technically happen and things that have happened before in the past. But that doesn't mean you should count on them. So don't just count on us like, I can pick whatever I want and I technically can win or we technically can win. It's like, yeah, technically, but probably not, right? I mean, I've played games that have bad team comps. This game is one of them. I'm playing solo healer and we win this game. We full hold them. And in the next game, we're playing a solo tank against a team that's playing double tank, and we win. And even our one tank moves to DPS at the end, and we're like quad DPS, which I didn't notice until I watched the replay again. But again, we win that game. So yes, you can win with not ideal comps, whatever not ideal comp is to you. Maybe it's 2-2-2, maybe it's goats, which would make sense because again, this is an objective-based game. You want to give things that have a lot of health, so that you could stay on the objective longer. That makes a lot of sense, right? That's how goats became the best and would still be if it wasn't illegal in Overwatch. But regardless, yes, you can win with any comp. But 222 seems pretty good. Maybe you don't want any DPS, but there's a lot of really powerful abilities in this game. A lot of your supports can heal an almost dead tank in under a second and a half, or under a second in some circumstances. That's insane. That would be bonkers in other games. There are a lot of DPS that can just instantly kill everyone on the enemy team super duper quickly with an ult, without an ult. And there are tanks that can just live forever and ever and ever and ever if they're cycling things right and they have two teammates helping them out. But when it comes to, how should you try to prioritize things when it comes to like filling out a roster if you want to try to win a game? I would suggest, first of all, I know most of our games, at least most of my games, have been 3-2-1, 3 DPS, 2 supports, and a tank. And that's not the worst thing, but it's definitely not the best. 2-2-2 seems really strong and balanced. Obviously, it's technically balanced because it's an even distribution of all 3 of the roles. But we know there's not a lot of tanks in the game. There's not a lot of healers in the game. And there's even less tanks that can solo tank effectively, especially if you're solo tanking against a team that's duo tanking. That makes things even harder, especially if you're going after something like a choke, a really long line of sight like this map. It's really hard to attack with a solo tank that doesn't have any sort of shield, and the enemy team does have those things and 2 healers to heal them. That's really hard. A lot of this time, this map goes on full holds. Most of the games end up being complete blowouts, even in competitive. Hopefully that'll lessen the more and more I go up in competitive. But the things to most people should be quite obvious what is good or what you should be trying to do. But most people aren't going to want to do those things because most people are people, and most people want to just play DPS no matter what. So most people, or at least the most vocal people, don't want there to be role queue because most people just want to play DPS no matter what, even if it means losing 100-0 and never getting a kill. People would much rather do that, and as long as they're DPS, as opposed to winning by playing as a tank or a strategist. So that's just the way people are, and that's just the reality of it. I'm not going to say that it's really bad or really good one other way. I'm not going to say you have to play tank or you have to play support. If you've only played one character ever, you probably want that person on that one character. And no, we shouldn't have your whole team, toe cow to one bad player on your team. That's just not going to be great for anybody. But also, sometimes it might be better to run with a solo tank than forcing somebody to play Doctor Strange that's never played Doctor Strange before. You would get more value out of them by them playing, War Machine Punisher that they've just been playing, and anybody could pick up and play even if they've never played this game before. It's very straightforward, Bastion-like character. So you don't always want people to switch off of things and force a certain kind of comp. That's not what you're always going to want, but having a more balanced comp is something that you're going to want. And guess what? It's also a ton more fun. I can I've played a lot of the tanks, and we do know that Doctor Strange and Magneto have the higher pick rates and the highest win rates of tanks. Hulk is also up there. Maybe he's number 1 or 2 on pick rate or win rate. I'm not too sure. But those are the 3 most picked and most successful tanks in the game. And also probably the 3 best at solo tanking, right? So whereas, technically, yes, you can win with solo tank Thor or solo tank Captain America. I've done it more oftentimes than I've lost because I've learned how to put in the time to learn those characters and when not to pick those characters, when it's just not going to behoove me. But when you go 2 tanks and 2 supports, which, like I said, you're always going to want 2 supports more than you're going to want 2 of anything else, because if you lose the support, you just lose the game, because it only takes one person on the enemy team to figure out, hey, I have 1 brain cell. If we kill their 1 support, they just automatically lose the game, because almost no characters have any healing outside of, healers. Almost no DPS or tanks can heal themselves. And obviously, yeah, you have some damage mitigation with shields and bubbles and cooldowns and things like that. But it's not going to substitute for heals. It's just not. So, having two tanks is good because it helps your supports out a lot more, keeps them alive longer. Having two supports keeps two tanks alive a lot better. Even more so than I would say killing a single DPS or a single tank alive. Two supports will get better at keeping two tanks alive than they are at keeping one tank alive, because that one tank is just going to get all the pressure from the enemy tank, if there are any, and all the enemy DPS, because people are always going to shoot at the big thing. The big thing is always going to be a tank, and the thing running at them. Not always Spider-Man, because he's really, really fast and insane to hit and really, really small. And people haven't learned to peel yet in this game, but most people are going to pay attention to tank because they're the big thing that's easy to hit and the thing that you want to kill more so than the squishies, because again, it's an objective based game. If you can kill the tank, that gives you a huge advantage. But if you have two people that only play support and four people that only play TPS, then you probably don't want them playing Doctor Strange for the first time just so that you can have a shield to throw up. It might just be better to have them play what they want. Sure, you're probably going to lose that game, but you might have a better chance at winning if they just play something that they know how to do damage on. Sure, they're probably going to go 8-14, and you're probably going to lose the game, but you're going to give yourself a better chance at winning by not forcing people onto roles that they don't want to be on. Sure, those are scumbag teammates that won't pick what is best for the team and what can help you win the most. But to a lot of people, this game isn't about winning. It isn't even about doing well. It's about just playing DPS or whatever character it is. Maybe it's Jeff the Shark. I don't know. Maybe it's Venom. A lot of people just want to play what they want to play and play how they want to play. And you can't force them. And if you try to, nobody's going to have a good time. But if you do want to win, you're going to want multiple tanks. You're going to want multiple supports. If you have multiple tanks, Thor and Captain America go from terrible picks to incredible picks and super fun picks. Those are some of my most fun characters that I have playing. And yes, I've won with them as solo tanks, but they're just not as good as solo tanking as Magneto or Groot or Doctor Strange sometimes. So yeah, it's great to have tanks, and you're going to need supports. People are going to be toxic already. Don't try to add to it. But if you do want to win, and if you're watching this channel, you probably do. Yeah, learn how to play tanks and strategists. You're always going to get MVP, and you're going to win the most of the time. I am right now, and I think you would be too.